Something is shifting in Britain. Most people can feel it. Almost nobody can name it. And that's what makes it so hard to talk about. It's not one big thing. It's not a law, a company, or a scandal. It's quieter than any of those. It's happening in the most ordinary moments of ordinary days. And because each moment seems so small, most people just adapt and move on without ever asking why it feels different now. But the feeling doesn't go away. Last year alone, more than 17,000 shops on Britain's high streets closed for good, and over 200,000 retail jobs went with them. Familiar names have vanished from town centers within the space of a single year. Claire's collapsing into administration and shutting the bulk of its UK stores. Poundland closing dozens of branches. W.H. Smith disappearing from most high streets entirely after more than 230 years there. Every checkout in your local supermarket is quietly becoming a screen instead of a person. 8 pubs a week are closing their doors permanently. And somewhere in the last decade, without a single announcement that felt big enough to notice, more than 6,000 bank branches disappeared from British high streets. Every one of those changes has a reasonable explanation. But when you stop treating them as separate stories and start seeing them as one story, something comes into focus that most people have never been able to say out loud. These changes aren't scattered. They aren't coincidental. They're all moving in the same direction. And once you see that, you really can't unsee it. Part 1. The morning you've already lived. Picture a Tuesday. Nothing special about it. You pull into the car park of the supermarket you've been going to for years. Same store, same aisles. You grab what you need and head to the front. Every checkout is a self-service kiosk. Every single one. You scan your own items, bag them yourself, tap your card. The machine beeps. You walk out. For minutes. Not one word spoken to another human being. An hour later, you stop by the chemist. The person behind the counter answers your question in one sentence. Eyes already drifting to the next customer before you finished saying thank you. That afternoon, you need to sort something out at a local council office. There's a sign on the door. Everything's moved online now. The desk behind it is empty. On their own, none of those moments feel significant. But here's what's worth actually pausing on, and this is the part most people never stop to think about. None of those changes replaced something that was frustrating you. None of them fixed a problem you had. They replaced something you never thought to protect because it felt too small, too ordinary, too unremarkable to ever feel like it mattered. A quick back and forth with a cashier who recognized your face. A pharmacist who asked how you were holding up. A clerk at the counter who remembered something you'd mentioned last time. Those weren't big moments. Nobody would put them in a highlight reel of their life. But they were the texture of daily life. The small, invisible thread connecting you to the people around you. People you hadn't planned to meet, hadn't scheduled time with, hadn't even thought about. They were just there in the same space, briefly part of the same ordinary moment. That thread is disappearing. Not because anyone sat down and decided to get rid of it, but because every system built to shave off a few minutes of your time is also quietly, as a side effect, removing one more reason for two people to say anything to each other at all. Part 2. The number that doesn't make sense at first. Here's a fact that genuinely seems like a contradiction until you understand what's underneath it. In 2018, Britain became the first country anywhere in the world to appoint a government minister whose actual job title included the word loneliness. It made headlines everywhere. Other countries followed. And yet, 7 years on, loneliness in this country hasn't gone away. It's grown. The number of people in the UK who say they're chronically lonely, lonely often or always, has risen by roughly 500,000 since the pandemic. Nearly 3 in 10 British adults now say they feel lonely at least some of the time. Among young adults specifically, the rate is even higher than it is for pensioners, which cuts directly against the picture most people carry in their heads of who loneliness actually affects. Researchers describe the health impact of chronic loneliness as comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 cigarettes. Not from being stranded somewhere remote. From the kind of quiet, low-level disconnection that builds slowly when the small moments of daily human contact gradually stop happening. Sociologists have spent decades studying the spaces where that contact used to happen most naturally. They call them third places. Not home, not work. The spaces in between. And in Britain, the third place has always had a name almost everyone recognizes: the local pub. It's not a stretch to call it. Industry figures show 8 pubs a week closed permanently in the first half of last year alone. More than 2,000 have shut since 2020. 2 in 3 Britons say pubs are essential for fighting loneliness in their community. And 1 in 3 say they, or someone they know personally, became more isolated after their local pub closed. The chemist, the corner shop, the bank branch, the local pub. The unremarkable places where people happen to coexist without planning it, without needing a reason, and where in doing so, they felt a little less alone. As more of daily life migrates to apps and screens and automated systems, those spaces don't just get quieter, they disappear. And a country can create the world's first ministry dedicated to fighting loneliness, and still watch loneliness climb anyway, because the ministry was never the thing actually holding those spaces open. The cost of that isn't only emotional. Researchers estimate loneliness costs UK employers in the region of £2.5 billion a year in reduced productivity and staff turnover, with a further £1.5 billion or so falling on the NHS and wider public services, treating its knock-on effects. That's the strange, quietly circular shape of this. The same country that built the institutions to measure and respond to loneliness is also the country whose ordinary daily infrastructure, the pub, the bank branch, the counter with a familiar face behind it, keeps disappearing in ways that make loneliness more likely in the first place. That's the first layer of what's changing in Britain. The second one is different, and most people have genuinely never thought about it. Part 3. Your devices aren't just tools anymore. Think about the last time you set up a new piece of technology. The moment you switch it on, before you can do anything with it, it asks you to sign in. It wants your name, your email address, access to your home network. It presents you with a terms and conditions agreement running to dozens of pages that almost nobody actually reads. You agree, of course you agree, because you just want to use the thing. And the moment you do, the device knows where you are, what language you speak, roughly what time you go to sleep, what kind of content you tend to watch. Because your schedule is visible in the pattern of when the screen turns on and off. Now think about your car. Newer vehicles connect to your phone the moment you get inside. Many include a camera mounted inside the cabin, pointed directly at your face, built to detect when you're distracted or drowsy. Your watch is tracking your heart rate around the clock. Your smart speaker is waiting for your voice. Government figures put the average UK household at around 9 separate internet-connected devices right now, and that number has been climbing every year. None of that is suspicious on its own. The navigation app genuinely needs your location to give you directions. Feature by feature, it all makes sense. And it's not only new devices doing this. Under UK data protection law, practically every website you visit now greets you with a cookie banner before you can read a single word, a consent request that exists because of genuine, well-intentioned privacy regulation, and that almost everyone clicks through without reading dozens of times a week, because there's no realistic alternative if you actually want to use the site. The protection is real. So is the fact that it's become another piece of digital wallpaper nobody actually stops to look at. But here's what shifts when you stop looking at each device, each banner, each terms and conditions screen individually. What's changed isn't how much data any single device is collecting. What's changed is what all of that data, combined, actually represents. Part 4. You're not just a user, you're a portrait. A few years ago, you bought a product. It did what it was supposed to do. When you were done with it, the transaction was over. That's not how it works anymore. Most of the technology in your life today keeps learning about you long after you bought it. Your habits, your daily schedule, where you go, what you watch, what you search for, what you buy, and what you almost bought. Not all at once, and not in any way that feels dramatic. Just consistently, quietly building over time. Individually, none of those pieces tell you much. But thousands of those data points, accumulated over months and years, assembled into a continuous record of how you actually live your life. That's not a data point anymore. That's a portrait. This is also why advertising has started feeling unsettling to people who never used to give it a second thought. You look at something online for 3 minutes, don't buy it, don't search for reviews, just close the tab and move on. Within hours, that exact product is appearing on your social media, your streaming app, your inbox. The immediate reaction most people have is, something is watching me. The truth is stranger than that. The system didn't need to watch you in real time. It already knew enough about you, gathered across enough different platforms, to predict what you were going to want before you'd consciously decided you wanted it. Your streaming account connects to your internet provider. Your fitness tracker syncs to your smartwatch, which connects to health apps on your phone. These connections are things you opted into willingly, because they genuinely make life easier. Nobody forced them on you. But when data from 10 or more different devices flows into the same connected ecosystem, it creates a picture of a person no individual device could ever produce on its own. If any of this is landing for you, if you felt this without having the words for it, a like genuinely helps more people find this video. Part 5. When the system starts making real decisions about your life. What happens when that same data, and the systems built around it, moves beyond showing you adverts and starts shaping decisions that have actual meaningful consequences? There's a specific kind of frustration that almost never makes the news because it doesn't fit the shape of a dramatic story. It's the frustration that comes from doing everything right and still finding yourself standing in front of a wall of automated systems, unable to locate a single human being with the actual authority to help you. Think about what it currently takes to get an ordinary tax query resolved by phone. HMRC received 37 million phone calls in the 2023 to 24 tax year. In that same year, it managed to answer just 66% of people trying to reach an advisor, against its own target of 85%, with average waiting times running past 20 minutes. Callers who'd been on hold for 70 minutes were automatically cut off. No explanation, no callback offered. A decade earlier, HMRC answered 33 million calls a year. By 2023 to 24, that had fallen to 16 million, roughly half, even as the population of taxpayers had grown. Nobody in that chain is being hostile. Nobody is trying to make your life harder. Every step is functioning exactly the way it was designed to function. And you can still end up stuck, holding a phone, listening to hold music, with no clear person on the other end who is actually responsible for your specific problem. Part 6. The system isn't broken. That's actually the problem. This pattern isn't unique to the tax office. It shows up in council services, in benefits applications, in utility disputes, in dealings with government agencies at every level. The systems aren't failing. They're working exactly as intended. They've just been built to handle volume efficiently, not to resolve the specific, sometimes complicated human situation standing in front of them. And those are two very different things. You can see this most clearly in banking. Since the start of 2015, more than 6,700 bank and building society branches have closed across the UK. Around 69% of every branch that existed at the start of that period. 52 parliamentary constituencies now have no bank branch left at all, and another 91 are down to their last one. For the vast majority of everyday transactions, that shift has been a genuine improvement. Checking a balance or moving money is faster and easier than it's ever been. But when those branches closed, something else closed with them that never showed up in any efficiency report. The physical place where you could walk in and talk to someone who knew your account and had the authority to actually do something about it. Picture what that actually looks like for someone it affects. An elderly man in a town whose last remaining bank branch shut 2 years ago now has to take a bus to the next town over just to deposit a check because the nearest banking hub that replaced it only offers basic services with no face-to-face support. He's not being unreasonable, and he's not being left behind on purpose. He's simply on the wrong side of a decision made in a boardroom hundreds of miles away, weighed against footfall numbers he'll never see. That person, in most communities, is simply gone. What's left in their place is a system that works beautifully for standard transactions and has almost no mechanism for handling anything that doesn't fit the standard workflow. Part 7. The trade that wasn't on the receipt. Step back from all of that for a second, because underneath the vanishing cashiers, the learning devices, and the automated systems, there's something more fundamental going on, a trade most people entered into without ever being clearly told they were making one. Think about what a normal morning looks like now for millions of people in Britain. You wake up and your phone tells you how you slept. You get in your car and it unlocks before you've touched it because it recognized your phone. You tap your watch to pay for your coffee. Every one of those moments is genuinely better than the alternative used to be. Nobody forced any of it. People adopted these tools because they work. But here's the question almost nobody asks when they set these things up. What did it actually cost? Not money. Most of these features come free, bundled in, standard. The navigation app needs to know exactly where you are at all times to function. That's the trade. The sleep tracker needs uninterrupted access to your body throughout the night. That's the trade. None of those trades is unfair on its own. Each one gives you something real in return. But what's happened slowly over the past decade is that these trades have become so woven into everyday life, so automatic, so built into the experience of simply using an ordinary product, that most people no longer experience them as decisions at all. They just feel like Tuesday morning. Part 8. What all of it adds up to. Step back now and look at everything at once. Every individual change is defensible. The self-checkout saves time. The connected car needs your phone data to work properly. The automated helpline is cheaper to run and handles more volume. None of those explanations are wrong. None of those motivations are sinister. None of this was designed as a coordinated effort to make daily life feel worse. And yet, the casual conversation between strangers in the same checkout queue, mostly gone. The familiarity of being a known face at your local bank branch or chemist, fading in the 52 constituencies where that branch no longer even exists. The pub where someone behind the bar knew your name, closing at a rate of roughly one a day. The ability to find a real person with the authority to actually sort out your situation, harder to reach than it was 10 years ago, measured in the tens of minutes you now spend on hold. What's changing isn't any one piece of this. What's changing is the texture of daily life, the feel of it, the experience of moving through an ordinary day in Britain. And the reason so many people carry a hard-to-name sense that something is different, that everyday life doesn't quite feel the way it used to, isn't because they've all landed on the same opinion about technology or the economy. It's because they're all living through the same accumulation of small, quiet shifts. One kiosk where a person used to stand. One local pub that used to be there and now isn't. One phone call that loops back to where it started. Part 9. Why the slow changes are the ones that actually change everything. Historians who've spent careers studying how societies transform keep coming back to the same observation, and most people find it counterintuitive. The biggest changes in how people live aren't the dramatic ones, not the crashes, not the scandals, not the events that end up in documentaries. Those feel enormous in the moment, and they are, but they don't reshape the actual texture of daily life the way the slow changes do. The deepest shifts happen in the background, in the design of the spaces people move through every day, in the quiet, undramatic restructuring of how people spend the ordinary hours of their lives that nobody ever writes about. The commute, the errand, the quick exchange at a counter that no longer happens. Those changes don't generate headlines, because no single moment is dramatic enough. But they accumulate into something that gradually and completely rewrites what feels normal, what people expect, what they no longer think to ask for. That is exactly what's happening right now. Not a crisis, not a scandal. A baseline shift. Quiet, cumulative, and moving in one direction. Part 10. The question that actually matters. Britain isn't becoming unrecognizable because of any one thing. Not self-checkouts, not data, not a single closed branch or a single closed pub. It's that all of it is converging at the same time, in the same direction, and everyone living inside that convergence, which is everyone, is being asked to adapt continuously, faster than most people have had a chance to pause and decide what they actually want. The question isn't whether any of this can be reversed. That's probably not how it works. The question is whether you're making deliberate choices about how much of it you want, or whether you're waking up one day and discovering the environment around you reorganized itself while you were busy adjusting to the last thing. Understanding the pattern doesn't fix anything on its own, but it does something important. It changes your relationship to what's happening around you. It means seeing the choices as choices, not just as the way things are. The people who move through this with the most clarity won't be the ones who reject every convenience and try to opt out of modern life entirely. They also won't be the ones who wave every closure and every new login screen through without a second thought. They'll be the ones who can see the small changes clearly, track where they're pointing, and make real, deliberate decisions about what's worth protecting on purpose, rather than losing it by default because nobody was watching for it. None of what Britain is going through right now was coordinated. It wasn't designed in a single room by a single group of people with a unified plan. It emerged from millions of individual decisions by companies, councils, banks, and ordinary people, almost all of them, most of the time, just try to make something slightly faster, slightly cheaper, slightly more convenient. The outcome wasn't designed. It accumulated. And that's actually what makes this moment matter, because the next chapter isn't designed either. It's being accumulated right now, in choices being made today about which branch closes next, which service goes online only next, which local pub doesn't find a buyer. Those aren't questions reserved for policymakers or bank executives. They're questions for everyone who lives here. Britain is still here. What it becomes is still being decided. What's the one part of this that felt most familiar to you? Leave it below.